What's up, everybody? It is the Dark Conservatarian, and this is just a little debate review that I almost felt kind of obligated to get out of the way about the Filthy Heretic and Esoteric the Free versus Wes Savage, and I think the other guy's name was Colton. I can't remember the full name. The debate on Hoppianism and other sort of subjects that it was. Actually, I think originally it was about argumentative ethics, but I think there was a little bit of I don't know how much of Hoppianism that I can remember there was explicitly being mentioned. But nonetheless, yeah, I watched it last week and I just thought I had to get my thoughts on it. And I guess before I go any further, I ought to get address the one big fat hairy elephant in the room, and that is the quote of property is violence that was uttered by Eso. Now let me add a disclaimer that these two, Eso and Filthy, hate my guts. And in turn, I cannot stand them either. So there is absolutely no bias towards them, for them, that I have when I say this, in that I don't think that these two advocate for violent seizure of private property. As some people are kind of pulling that quote, and I guess other lines of dialogue and rhetoric as well throughout the debate, in order to sort of, quite honestly, strawman them to as being for seizing private property and thinking that private property rights, private property in general, is illegitimate. Like, I listened to that whole debate and I did not really get that implication at all. Like, I would much sooner say that them two were being dumb or bumbling with their words before I would ever say that they are for violently seizing private property. Now, the one big thing being the whole "property is violence" quote that was thrown out there by Eso. Let me say that this is an absolutely stupid quote, but within that quote, the whole word salad and sort of indirect bit of dialogue that Eso was espousing around that quote. If you listen to the full, I guess, 5 minute time span that's around the timestamp of specifically he says that quote, he was saying that in a manner of speaking, trying to make the case that one person can legitimately and probably even should defend their own private property. And amongst that whole thing, he said even with violence if possible, if need be, for somebody to defend their own private property. And within that, he just blurted out the words, quote unquote, property is violence. But irregardless of the context, this is still a stupid ass quote, a stupid ass bit of words. And I think I even saw that a screen cap of Filthy even admitting that, yeah, he probably shouldn't have said that. He probably should have said something different. Like, if these two are for people defending their own private property, they should just drop that quote like it's hot, honestly. And they might even, if I was to give the benefit of the doubt, but nonetheless, they should just drop it because it just puts forth the bad precedent for the Marxists to feel legitimate in their anti-private private property rights beliefs. They believe that private property, that privately owned businesses should be seized and publicly owned, to put it simply. And it's for bits of, and it's because of the reasoning off of private property being stolen, private property being illegitimate, or even private property being violence. Like, if that's to be their reasoning, then Eso just saying that is just going to make the Marxists feel emboldened and sort of legitimized with their advocacy and goal of wanting to seize all private business owners' private property, you know? So, because of that, and there's also a second reason too, but because of that reason, for one, nobody who believes in private property rights should be espousing this unironically. Second reason being, violence is not a noun. It is not an object. It is an action. Violence is an action. And yeah, property is an object. It's I might have already said that, but I'm just going to continue. Property is an object, not an action. Violence is not an object, it's an action. Plain and simple. And even if somebody was to digest it and sort of break down their logic of what they're actually trying to mean, even with the idea of a private property owner having to defend their own property with violence, that's not always the case. That's not inherently the case. In fact, most homeowners, for example, within America and even the modern Western world in general, they go owning their property without having to practice a single lick or swing of violence in order to defend their property from some violent thug, providing that the opportunity has never came across that they have to take such action in order to defend their private property. But for the most part, most people who have owned homes, they've never even had to commit an act of violence in order to defend their property. So it's not inherently the case even that people have to use violence to defend their home, because they don't always come across that opportunity. A person can go their entire life owning their home without having to swing a single fist at somebody trying to steal their home or violate their home or business even, and whatnot. And like I said, for the most part, people don't have to do it. For the select few that do have to do that, yes, it is legitimate for them to be... of course, you all know that what my beliefs are. I believe that it is legitimate for somebody to possibly use violence if need be to defend their property. But yeah. And I guess another bit of... another line that kind of bugged me about that debate is the one line of where that SO was going on, or it might have been Filthy, but both SO and Filthy, they were asked the question by Colton of, you wouldn't even want police to be arresting or practicing any sorts of justice against rapists and murderers even. They said, yeah, they don't. And this bit of... and this point of the debate, which is at around, I can't remember what exactly it was. It might have been 1 hour, 40 minutes or something like that, something around that time. But at the point of when Colton asked them that question, and they said, yeah, we don't want police to be acting against even rapists and murderers. It was also in kind of connection to people who get their private property stolen, to people who steal from people's businesses, etc. It was in relation to the whole "release the cops" quote that Esso and Filth want to keep on reminding people that Rothbard had said. And Colton was just trying to clarify the context, that the context as to why he said that is because police should be, if they are to exist, that's a big fat if too, by the way. I don't want anybody to be getting pedantic with me on how ultimately cops should not exist. That if I was to give the benefit of the doubt, that might ideally have to be the case, that cops don't exist. Even then, they do exist. So the big fat if they are to exist, they ought to stop, thieves from looting a store, for example, or robbing an old lady their purse or whatever else have you. But these two, they don't want police to be doing that. And also rapists and murderers don't want police to be acting on rapists and murderers as well. And because of this point of the debate, it does also set the precedent that theft would be okay, that violation of private property would be okay. That police should not act on thieves and whatnot, and you can and I can already hear all the taxation is theft responses that I get at this point in my video. But nonetheless, all the looters and whatnot that police be acting against, and all of you say, no, the police should not be acting against looters, should not be acting against thieves and other sorts of objectionable criminals and whatnot. It does almost put forth the precedent and almost the implications and the sympathies, rather, of those people that what am I trying to say? How do I word this? It almost puts forth the precedent that violation of private property is fine and dandy. That the Marxists are right. Private property is illegitimate and so forth. So therefore, police leave the thieves alone, etc., etc. But even at this point right here, I don't think the root reason as to why they hold this belief, Filthy and Eso do, I mean, that police should not be acting against thieves, I don't think it's because that they have a disbelief in private property, that they're actually against private property rights. I don't think that that's the root reason. The root reason, I think, is because of their hatred towards cops, to put it quite bluntly. And quite honestly, if somebody really hates cops more than they hate rapists, murderers, and even thieves, like thieves that go stealing by the bunches anyways, I mean, even if you go hating like every single cop, even the cops that have not committed a rape, murder, or anything else objectively immoral like that in themselves, even if you hate even those types of cops more than you hate the common criminal, rapist, murderer, etc., then honestly, I think you got your priorities fucked. And at that point, it almost seems that a debate on the police just seems kind of pointless with you. And I'm just saying that in general to anti-cop people. Like, it's one thing for you to be anti-cop, that's fine, let's have a discussion. But if you're going to say, but if you are going to be all like, oh yeah, the police, they put to justice this murderer and this rapist, or if you're going to be all like, oh yeah, this rapist or murderer was put to justice, oh, but it was done by a cop, and so therefore this is bad. If that's going to be your logic, well then at this point, it seems that a debate on the police almost seems pointless. Aside from the reasoning and intent to just put on a shit show, an entertaining shit show for other people to watch. Aside from that possible reasoning, a debate, or a live stream rather, almost seems pointless. But nonetheless, that was frustrating, and other points that I have to say about this debate. Overall, I have to say that I think personally it was a tie. Like, Colton did alright in the first half anyways, but on the second half, he just got less and less confident, less and less assertive, and it just put a bad image on he and on his team overall. Now, this is not me faulting Wes. I mean, Wes, when he did speak, he asserted himself. He put his foot down. The problem is that he hardly spoke at all. I would have liked to have seen Wes speak more often. In fact, this is a little bit of a criticism that both Filthy and Eso kind of pointed out, is that even Filthy did not talk a whole lot, or at least that was their opinion, but me personally, I thought that Filthy talked plenty. Filthy, Eso, and Colton talked plenty. Though Eso, I would say, from what I remember, talked the most throughout that debate, but that's neither here nor there. Wes should have talked more. But that said, when he did speak, he was fairly assertive in that. There was one question that he asked in which Eso did not answer sufficiently, or answer at all, really. Here, let me, just 1 second. Going to go ahead and try to pull up the screen cap, or the timestamp that I was looking at. But, yeah, there was some question, what was the timestamp? Oh yeah, it was about 58:45. That's the timestamp anyways. I can't remember what the exact question was, but that's the timestamp within the debate of one that it frustrated the heck out of me. That basically Eso was avoiding Wes's question. And there was another point in which that Wes Savage was trying to give his own, I guess you could say, off the cuff definition of what ethics are. And Filthy was all like, that's begging the question. And Wes was all like, no, I'm just giving a definition. I'm not begging the question. It's not begging the question. And Filthy just kept on insisting, yeah, that's begging the question. I'm just all like, dude, for fuck's sake. Don't be so frustrating. This is one of the more frustrating things about Filthy and Eso, is that they latch onto those little pedantic things or they go throwing out some fancy term or word in response to whatever the person has said in order to gain brownie points in the debate or whatever. It's frustrating. But I was just thinking to myself, like, he's just trying to give a definition to the word in that proper time of the debate. That was all it was. No need to read into it any further. For fuck's sake, get off of it. That I don't know. It just seemed that Filthy Heretic was just throwing out fallacies, just you know, in the same way that somebody would be throwing shit against the wall, hoping that something sticks. That's what that moment felt like. And what moment was that? I think it was like 1 hour 7 minutes in which that well, I think actually I did not write down the timestamp, but I think it was around 1 hour 7 minutes that Wes was giving out a definition of ethics, and then Filthy was all like, "You're begging the question." Jeez. And I know that this it's funny because this kind of reminds me of another thing when I was one time in conversation with Filthy, when I just invited him on my show, Strike Force, just to sort of casually chat, I guess, about politics and whatnot. And I said that something along the lines of, I think that XYZ should be allowed. And then Filthy was just, he admitted it himself that he was being pedantic. But yeah, he was just sort of nitpicking at the fact that I used the word allowed, essentially. And because I said the word allowed, he thought that I was meaning the government in some sort of fashion or whatnot. He was all like, I don't think anybody should be asking anybody for permission to do XYZ. And I was all like, well, you can disagree with the term if you want to. And then he was all like, okay, yeah, sorry for the pedantry or whatnot. And what I have to say, like, looking back on that, and this is kind of unrelating to the debate, but what I have to say, looking back on that, the word allow does not inherently entail that somebody had to be asked in order for the first person to get permission to do XYZ thing. Allowance doesn't always entail that somebody was asked for permission. That's what I have to say to that. But anyway, that's probably about it that I have to say about the debate as far as what I can remember off the top of my head anyways. Yeah, I say that it was a tie. I mean, Eso and Filthy, they obviously came off a whole lot more confident. Overall, I mean, Wes was confident whenever he did speak, but because he spoke so little, Colton was carrying his team for the most part, and Colton just wasn't very confident, wasn't very assertive and whatnot, and so there was a better image put forth with from Filthy and Eso anyways. But even looking past the confidence, if somebody was to look at the substance, like, I cannot, like, pinpoint any one single point that was a knockout point on Filthy and Eso's part that clearly won them the debate or whatever. I mean, if you speak Esonian, well, then obviously you're going to think that these two clobbered Wes and Colton, but it's whatever. Y'all can have your opinion, but I'm just getting my opinions out there and sort of clarifying the record that I don't think that Filthy and Eso are for seizing private property. Plain and simple, I did not get that out of this entire debate. There's a whole lot of stupid lines of logic that they were espousing that sort of sets a bad precedent within the debate for us libertarians who are heavily outspoken for private property rights. But in the ultimatum of things, I don't think they believe in that necessarily. Anyway, yeah, and ultimately I just think that overall it's a tie. But if you think that Eso and Filthy won, well then, hey, I guess I can't totally blame you. But anyway, that's my thoughts. And if you thought that Wes and Colton actually won the debate, well then, that's cool too. Maybe you saw something that I didn't. But anyway, thank you all for watching this video. Sorry that was a little bit long-winded and kind of rambly, but I just had to get out all my thoughts about this. Anyway, see y'all next time. Bye-bye.